Spring versus springless. Which trampoline is actually better? Here I have two very different builds. One's a traditional spring trampoline that I've been using for 7 years. The other is a modern design that swaps springs for bungee cords, promising a safer, smoother bounce. Today I'm going to put both of them to the test and help you figure out which one's really worth your money. Behind me are both the trampolines. To the left we have the 15-foot upper bounce spring-based trampoline from Walmart. To your right is the SkyBound springless trampoline. I got this sent to me about a week ago, and we're not that close. What I'm going to do is to give them a 1 through 5 star rating on each real world category that most buyers are looking for. So hopefully this video will give you guys the answers you need, whether you're a pro, beginner, the kids, or the dad that has to build it all. The categories I'm testing are assembly and setup, build quality and size, safety features, bounce performance, and user purpose / who it's for. So for assembling the spring trampoline, yeah, I was 15, I don't really remember. But I was out there helping, and I'd say it took about 3 hours. It was my first time and my dad's first time assembling one, so that's not terrible. I do think it could have been done in less, but hey, now we know. The 15-foot upper bounce trampoline came with about 12 different parts, 10 not including the spring tool and the screwdriver, but in total it was 176 different pieces that you need to work with. Here's what the trampoline looks like fully put together. It's pretty much your average trampoline. Building the trampoline can be done completely solo, which is awesome. The instructions were super clear and easy to follow, which is why I'm gonna have to rate the upper bounce trampoline assembly 4 out of 5 stars, being pretty damn easy. Now for this piece of shit. I built this trampoline a week ago completely by myself. The box said it needs 2 people, but it really doesn't. So yes, you can build this trampoline solo. The springless trampoline came with 21 different parts, 18 not including the wrenches and the spring tool, but in total it was 179 separate pieces. That's not bad considering this came with an additional ladder and the netting system was a lot more complex. Here's what the trampoline looks like fully put together. It took me 3 separate days because with the bungee cords you have to be extremely specific with the instructions. If you don't put in the exact bungee the manual tells you, it will ruin the entire process. Trust me, I learned from experience. My rating for this trampoline assembly will be 3.5 out of 5 stars only because of the mishap I had, and that was completely on me. Here's the scorecard for assembly comparing both trampolines. They were both pretty easy, just take the scores with a grain of salt because it was my own personal experience. Now let's go over the specs and materials used on the trampoline and give them their ratings. Both frames consist of galvanized steel with rust and weather resistant coatings. The main differences I want to emphasize is the spring trampoline has 7.5-inch springs, also made out of galvanized steel, and the springless trampoline has bungee cords. The spring trampoline uses the same material for the net, however the springless trampoline uses that material as well as fiberglass for better wind resistance. Here are the specs for the trampoline bed itself. It took about a year to break in and actually get maximum bounce, and then I ended up tearing it with the heel of my shoe. No, I shouldn't have been wearing shoes on the trampoline, but with how slight of an impact it was, I really feel like it should not have torn. However, there is no break-in period for the SkyBound trampoline. The bed is extremely tense as you set it up, so you're already getting your max bounce on day 1. Here are the specs of the bed on the SkyBound trampoline. I'd say both are pretty similar. One of the biggest differences I want to touch on is the difference in height of the frames. For the spring trampoline, the frame goes all the way up to my hips. As for the springless trampoline, the frame only gets up to my quads. That makes it a lot easier and safer for children to climb into, and you still don't sacrifice on any bounce doing so. So I'm going to rate the spring trampoline a 3.5 star rating, and for the springless trampoline, I'm going to give it a 4.5 stars. It uses all the same materials, if anything, they're better, and the difference in height is very impressive as well as a game changer. And since we've touched on the topic of safety, let's just go ahead and get right into it. Starting with the nets, I had 2 very different experiences. On the spring trampoline, I ended up doing a flip and landing on the net, and it kept me on the trampoline, however, it hurt my leg pretty bad. For the springless trampoline, I jumped into the net on purpose to see how the fiberglass would react, and unfortunately it snapped. However, most people don't do that, but it's a shame that if you break it once, you have to order new parts, as with the spring trampoline, when I landed on it, it didn't break at all. The spring covers on each trampoline were made out of the exact same material. However, I will say that this material weathered away pretty fast throughout my years of ownership on the spring trampoline. I would expect it to do the same on the springless. The only benefit here is that the bungee cords exposed will provide less injury than springs exposed. However, I must note that both nets were attached to the trampoline bed to prevent you from slipping into the springs regardless, so if the nets are on, you won't be hitting the springs at all. Here's the safety scorecard ratings on both the trampolines. The spring trampoline is at 4 stars while the springless is at 4.5. The only reason being is that bungee cords are overall safer to land on than springs, so try to just keep that in mind while you're shopping. Now, what we've all been waiting for, let's get into the bounce test. Let's start by test bouncing the spring trampoline. I'll tell you guys how the bed feels and how much effort I'm using to get the bounce. We're going to be doing one bounce test on each trampoline as the bed is dry, and then we're going to do a follow-up bounce test on the trampolines as they are wet. Adding water will increase weight on the trampoline, which also increases the bounce. This technique is super common in the freestyling community, and I was very excited to see how it would go on the springless trampoline. All right, let's run it up. This is max effort. Probably getting about 5 feet high from feet to trampoline. It's honestly not bad. My legs are tired already. Whew. It took a lot of work to get that height because the bed has so much slack. Overall, I'd give that bounce 3 stars. Now let's go test the springless trampoline. Immediately notice the bed is a lot tighter, meaning it's a lot easier to bounce. Let's just see how high these bungee cords can take me. That was good. So that was a lot less effort for about the same amount of bounce. And for that, I'll give the springless trampoline a 4 out of 5 stars for the dry bounce. But now let's get them wet. All right, the trampoline is wet. Let's see how she bounces. Feels like she's about to break. Less effort, more height. Feels really good, actually. Ooh, what a floater. All right, the spring trampoline wet test, I'd say bump the bounce up to 4 stars. Now let's do the springless. I'm very eager to see how this goes. Adding more weight to the bungees is probably only a bad thing where springs can kind of adjust to the weight, so I have a pool of water on it. All right, let's give it a bounce. Definitely bouncing higher with less effort. Holy. Yo. Okay, for not having any springs, that was a crazy difference. That was a 4.5 star jump, undoubtedly. That was so good. Let me see how easy it is to triple full. That's actually insane. So I almost feel like the entire frame of the trampoline was jumping with me. I almost feel like having less weight in the frame in this case is probably a bad thing for using water, but that bounce was insane. I would designate time to get this trampoline wet and play on it like that. 4.5 stars. Here's the scorecard based on the bounce for each trampoline. I was honestly blown away by the springless trampoline on this one. However, I did notice the entire trampoline was jumping with me, which is kind of scary. The final category is user purpose. I made a spreadsheet to show you guys what trampoline excels better in which areas for each user. Hopefully this will answer any questions you have remaining when it comes to which trampoline to buy. For my final take on each trampoline, when it comes to what you're buying, I feel it's completely subjective. Take what I showed you in this video and apply it to your shopping. I know it will guide you to making the right choice. When it comes to picking your trampoline, it all comes down to budget and what you're using it for. That's what makes this so subjective. If you're a professional freestyle trampolinist, you should definitely be getting a rectangular Acon. If you're a parent getting this for your children, you should be getting the SkyBound springless trampoline. If you're a beginner freestyle trampolinist and you're getting your first trampoline, either of these trampolines will do you just fine. The prices between these two are almost identical and the quality is almost as identical as well. I feel like SkyBound excels in safety, but it may lack in longevity, whereas the upper bound spring trampoline will definitely lack in safety but outlast in longevity. Like this video if it helps you to make up your mind on which trampoline to buy, and leave a comment on which one you think you're gonna choose. Subscribe if you want to see more from me. I really hope this helped you guys make up your mind. I love you. Goodbye.